Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Tyler Ellison. I am joined by Michelle Copeland of Nourish Your Soul TV, as well as the fabulous Cecilia, and our very special guest we're so happy to be featuring and interacting with is Reuben Langdon from Gaia TV. Hello, Reuben, and thank you for sharing this space with us.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tyler, for that introduction. Welcome, fans, to Nourish Your Soul TV, where collective consciousness meets to transform reality. Expect a miracle. We're so happy today and honored to have a special guest with us, Reuben Langdon. He's also an actor, stuntman, filmmaker, producer, and he is spearheading on the leading edge with myself, bringing and ushering forth contact, first contact, open contact, and recognizing extraordinary channels that are bringing through our galactic family beings. He is also the stuntman for the film Avatar, where Jake Sully was doing scenes, which I'm really excited about. James Cameron's film is one of my favorite films. And also check out his interview, all of us here who love Bashar, love Daryl. He interviewed Daryl, and that's gonna be released on March the 3rd through Gaia. And I'm gonna turn it over to let Reuben take it away and give us some further announcements for his excitements, things that he's up to. And he's gonna get to interact with Riok as well as you as well. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments now. So after Reuben talks with Riok, then we can get to your questions. Thank you so much, Reuben, and take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm excited about getting season 2 of Interview with Ed out on the Gaia Network. They are planning to launch the season with Daryl's episode, my interview with Daryl on, I think they bumped it up to March 2nd is the latest news I heard. So it's like the 3rd or the 2nd, probably the 2nd now. And I've got a whopping 25 episodes of new content that I know everybody's been waiting for. Originally, when I launched the series, it was just my own personal project, and I self-distributed it. And the people in this community, you know, quickly found it and helped support me and support the work. And it was a real blessing when Gaia picked it up last year. Because it opened up a whole new audience, and then it was successful. I think at some point last summer it was the most watched show on the Gaia Network. So that shows you what this information, this content, and what the people are really navigating towards. The story, right? This story that we're telling of our galactic family and connecting in a positive sense, in a positive way, and using the wisdom and information to transform us here on this planet into a where we can all get along with each other and with our galactic family. So that was the story that motivated me to want to tell that story in the form and the fashion that I am through the series. And it's continuing and ongoing. So season 2 is around the corner. And I'm also next week, while it's going to air, I will be in Hawaii with Gita Rose, who's going to be featured in season 2. And maybe some of your fans might know her. She channels a Yael being named Bella. And we are going to be doing a contact seminar retreat. And that's a big part of what I've been taking away from these interactions is there's a lot of work to be done, internal work for us collectively and individually to go deep and to explore our psyche, explore traumas, help release those and find those connections within, so we can connect on the outside. And this is just the first of many events that I'm hoping to collaborate even with you guys on. And we just started making this connection, so we'll go further into that. But it's a different company called ETA Productions, Extraterrestrial Awakening. And we have a lot of fun things planned in store for the future.
Well, That's so awesome. I love it. I'm curious though, Reuben, can you just give me a little like take for our fans and just like
Mhm.
describe that moment when you were being the stuntman for Jake Sully, and that's when you had your UFO encounter, and that was the trigger that kind of like inspired you to go into the realm of the extraordinary and to explore this. Can you just take us back to that moment, please? Share that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a combination of things. It wasn't like a one, well, the one main trigger was I had a daytime sighting. It was while I was working on the film Avatar, which was a 4-year period. And, but it was actually on one of my days off. I was at home, trying to catch up on sleep and laundry. Cause we were, when you're working with James Cameron, they're long days. They were sometimes, most of the time, actually 16-hour days. And so it's just kind of recouping and coming out of my laundry unit, whatever, when I was in my apartment in Glendale at the time. Coming out of that, I just looked up and there was these little white specks started to show up in the sky, one after another, and they got brighter and more of them. And then I was like, "Am I tripping? What's going on here?" And I was like, "Those are UFOs! Oh my God!" And so I called friends and I was trying to see if they could see them from where they were at, and they were different parts of town, so couldn't really see them. But at the time, I thought that was going to be like a world renowned event that people, like, the next day it's going to be all over the news and the whole world's going to know about UFOs and this stuff is real. And then lo and behold, the next day, or that night, eagerly waiting for the evening news, nothing was happening. I was like, "What's going on? This is like, what I just saw was profound. The whole world should be talking about this." And then that started me on the path of trying to uncover what I saw and also connect the dots to all of this stuff that has been, this 10-year plus journey, from going from playing an alien on TV or in the movies to actually interacting with them in this form and fashion we have now with this awesome technology called channeling. So, and since then I've had more encounters, more contact experiences, and it's been a wonderful journey, and I'm so glad to be on it.
Well, we're super excited to have you in our first contactee training, part 1 and part 2, which you just now enrolled a few days ago. So we're super excited to have you in our galactic rainbow family tribe here, that we're all together. And we've basically and what we're doing is we're creating this bubble, and it's a collective bubble of, and it's like literally telepathically we're all getting downloads and communicating with one another, and in our dreams, we're having encounters, and then we're sharing it, because this is how the ETs are actually communicating with us. And like you said and mentioned earlier previously, and Daryl has said this too, we're deconstructing within our own consciousness levels of awareness of what we've basically been allowing ourselves to receive, which is more aspects of ourselves. And by deconstructing those fears and those limiting beliefs, then we're able to actually have access to know what we need to know when we need to know it. And so I would love to know too, when did you first hear about Daryl Anka? When did he come on the scene?
So I had a different start in all this. After I had my experience, I became sort of a nuts and bolts ufologist. And I say that more for folks like Richard Dolan and Linda Moulton Howe and these amazing researchers. So I produced back in 2013 an event called the Citizen Hearing Disclosure, which was a 5-day event at the National Press Club. Many people following this work may have heard of it and may have seen it. We live streamed it. It was, at the time I thought it was a pretty big deal. It probably still is, just highly unadvertised by the mainstream media, because I think it was just a little too early for the timing of things. And though we had amazing people, we had military, government officials, pilots, head of investigations of the FAA, heads of SACMUC bases. That was sort of my journey initially, was trying to prove it with evidence-based material. So the spiritual journey was there to a certain extent, but I was more concerned about trying to have a governmental political disclosure. And I had teamed up with a lot of those researchers to help to go down that path. And I used to hold that I had a visual effects company in the Marina Del Rey, California, just with basically the Los Angeles area, producing video games and movies. And because of my interest, I started a monthly ET media meetup group. So it was an invite, started by word of mouth, and very quickly the entertainment industry in LA, people from all over just started showing up at these meetup groups every first Tuesday of the month. I had a big motion capture studio where we did work like Avatar for video games and movies. And I had Daryl, Wendy, and Nora, and there's probably some other channelers in there, but I didn't even know what channeling really was. I mean, I knew what channeling was, but I didn't know these people or who they were, what they were. So they would show up as Daryl, as Wendy, as oh, we're industry professionals, we're in the industry, and I didn't know what type of industry or whatever. And they would show up at these meetings. So I actually met Daryl way before I knew anything about Bashar. I just knew Daryl as Daryl. He was the experiencer. Oh, and it was funny. He's very humble. He would pass the mic around the big table that we had to sort of introduce everybody. We had Whitley Strieber there. We had when like Richard Dolan or Linda was in town, we had them, Barbara Lamb. This is how I knew all these people, from this ET Media group. And the mic would go to Daryl, and he goes, yeah, I'm Daryl Anka. I work in visual effects, and I've had some contact experiences. And then just pass the mic, right? And that was it. I didn't even know. So then later, somebody sent me some of the Bashar channeling stuff on YouTube. And I was like, wait, I know that guy. He comes to my meetings. And then I started going to his, meetup groups, right? The Bashar events. And was really resonating with the messages that Wendy and Nora and Daryl were channeling. So I really resonated with that information. And for me, it filled in a lot of the gaps that my evidence-based research that I had been doing for several, going and interviewing contactees on my own, sort of doing my own research and throwing ideas around different media type events. I also did the LA screening premiere of Thrive with Foster Gamble. So I was hanging out with those folks, right? That was my crowd. And then the whole channeling thing was like a side thing that was like, oh, this is interesting. But from a different perspective, it sort of fits with the puzzle pieces that I'd already been investigating. So then the more I focused on that material, and the more I started doing these interviews and really trying to ask these big questions, the more of the information I started applying in my life on a day-to-day basis, and really started seeing how effective that the shifts in perspectives and integrating the teachings and applying that information and in my day-to-day life, how it really positively had an impact. So yeah, and that's led me to just it's led me to where we are now, having this conversation.
Well, absolutely. So so my question where I was leading was when you got introduced to Bashar, well then, and then how did you find out about Riok?
Actually, Gita. So I met with, I did the interview with Gita, which hasn't aired yet, but it will. And this was, oh, wow, man, it's almost been a year. Time flies. I've been doing post for several months. When you're in post-production or anything, like, you're in another world. So Yeah, Gita said, "Oh, you should reach out to Tyler. He's up and coming. His material's really good, and I think that's, yeah, I think on Facebook or something. I don't know, Tyler. How did we connect? Did I just reach out to you
Yeah,
through Facebook?
yeah, it might have been both. I have a memory of me reaching out to you after I had spoken to her, and I think she had told
Oh, okay.
the two of you and your works together.
Hmm.
So it may have been, right, a two-way street where she might have mentioned that
Yeah,
to both of us, for sure.
totally.
And also, I had a question for you too.
Hmm.
And I was wondering, so you've interviewed like well over like 50, I mean, probably 50 channels by this point, right? 50 different people. Would you say that?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I was curious with all of the different folks that you have heard, are there certain messages that you find overlap? And are there certain messages that you find are very like, whoa, I haven't heard that before, like things that are sort of unique characteristics, as well as crossovers? Are these themes that you've seen in your work thus far?
Yeah, like I said, there was definitely the missing pieces to the puzzle, and as far as like the evidence-based work, I was finding that in the channeled work, like these bigger pictures of topics like the Orion Wars, or the abduction scenario, or the temporary detainment scenarios with the Greys and why they do what they do. And because logically, if you're just focusing on the evidence and interviewing contactees or experiencers or abductees or whatever you want to call them, then you get the sense that yes, this is very traumatizing, but the aspect of them being put back and not just thrown out into space or something like that, it's like, well, why would they go through the trouble? And that just doesn't logically doesn't, if this idea that there's a nefarious agenda to all of this stuff, right, that it just didn't set well with me. So the trigger, this probably goes back more to what Michelle was asking. The trigger to all this that really got me actually was after one of these ET media groups that I had, these meetup meetings, I was just talking with Wendy afterwards, and my lens through her was not Wendy the channel, she was Wendy the experiencer. And because again, I didn't have much information or concept of what channeling was at the time. And she told me, she said, well, my guides, and the way I understand it, it's a soul contract, the whole abduction phenomenon. And then that was like a big light bulb went off in my head. Soul contract. Oh my God. This is, and then that's when I was like, this is much bigger than any of us realize. And from the perspective of where, because a lot of the abductees that I had been interviewing up until that point were kind of coming at it from a victim mentality, and sort of seeing this nefarious thing, but then logic dictated that that didn't make sense. Like if they were a victim, then they would be thrown out into space and they wouldn't be having this conversation. So and there's more to it than that. I'm just sort of, lightly saying it that way. But the light bulb went off, and that was sort of my aha moment of, oh, okay, I need to go into this. So then to get to your question, what I did start noticing was, yes, the subtle details for every channeler, the language of the channeler, depending on their vocabulary, the story slightly changed a little bit here and there, but the basic, most general aspect of the whole channeling phenomenon and this different flavors of VTs and channels and all that stuff basically was consistent throughout. And that story is personal sovereignty, empowerment, and getting us out of the victim mentality. These are themes that sort of that I've noticed kind of stayed throughout the whole thing. But I do have to say this: there are channelers and other information out there that actually don't necessarily have that story, and it's just this is also my personal filter too. So I'm in a sense channeling the channelers because I'm very selective with who I resonate with, and which so for me, that story of personal empowerment, sovereignty, and ownership, and really taking charge of creating your own reality, that's the story that I want to tell. So I'm resonating with channelers who have that message. So I'm going and only really kind of handpicking the channelers that have that message, and a majority of them do have that. So it's easy to pick. I have a plentiful buffet of amazing channelers and amazing you know, energies from the other side of the veil, whether it's ET or angelic or, you know, ancient, you know, native culture type stuff. Like all of that basic base, they all basically sing the same song. They're all saying the same things, just with different tunes and different things. So it's been fun. It's been really fun connecting the dots.
Absolutely. And I want to just elaborate. Yeah, it goes back to the filters that we're looking through. And I'm going to use the line from Jim Kirk on Star Trek. You know, I don't believe in no-win scenarios. That's actually a belief that I actually, when I heard him say that, I was like, that's my belief. So it's kind of like actually a fail-safe, to be honest with you, if you believe in no-win scenarios, which I believe that that love is the win-win, you know, and that is where we embrace everyone and all aspects of ourselves and our family. And one of the downloads that I got from Spirit was that we have within our DNA basically the genes and the genetics of several different races, many races that couldn't solve their problems themselves, decided upon themselves that let's create a race with the best of each of us, and then see how they can solve it and learn through them. So they are literally, as we shift, they shift. And that has to do with seeing how we are emotionally working up the scale, and that is through being able to embrace our shadow and to own it and recognize that we're the ones giving everything meaning. And that goes as far as even the societal things that we're seeing in life play out in the world around us, because we're not separate from that. And I'm not separate from you. I'm not separate from Tyler, Cecilia, or any of viewers here. If you're here, it's because your higher self led you to be here, to watch this, to hear this now, because your spirit is talking to you. You're getting downloads, and it's about just allowing and trusting and embracing, you know, all of yourself and being that example. And I love how Bashar always reminds us, and Riok reminds us too, that you know, who we're being is in the world, just our being, our presence makes an impact. So without you know, saying any more than that,
Yeah, that was a mouthful. Just, in a good way. There was a lot. You just like hit on so many points in just a very short amount of time. So thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm holding hands with you guys. We're a tribe, and you know, I love everybody that's viewing and watching this, and I'm excited to talk to Riok, because before Reuben jumps in with his questions, I just have one question for Riok, and then Reuben can take it away, and then I'll get to the questioners that's in our comments.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. So I'll go deeper into the channeling flow so Rio can come through, and then yeah, have fun, everybody. All right, and we thank you so much for coming to interact with us this day of your time. It is our highest joy, passion, pleasure, and excitement to be able to have the co-creation with each and every single one of you during this transmission. How are you doing?
Greetings,
Hi,
Riok.
Riok.
Greetings, and it is such a blessing to be able to have the co-creation with each of you. Now, how would you like to begin in this conversation and dialogue together?
Greetings, Riok. How I'd like to begin is I feel a synergy connection with Reuben, and I would like to know, as far as the hybridization, the Sasani, what is Reuben and myself's connection, please? Could you
This is
elaborate?
something we will reveal at another point in time, understanding we are allowing for you to get to know each other on this level of physical incarnation. And as you begin to deepen that connection, understanding more of one another, the idea is the answer to the question you have proposed will at a certain point in time become obvious. But the idea is that higher dimensional information is reflected to you as a barometer of intimacy that is taking place between both of you in this particular incarnation. Makes sense so far?
Yes.
Understand?
Yep.
It will be provided as its relevance becomes higher and higher and higher for each of you.
Exciting. So, Riok, nice to meet you in this way.
And a pleasure to speak with you in this way as well.
So thanks for having me on the show, and look forward to our interviews down the road. But for now, I had a question about, it's my understanding that you are working closely with a lot of the hybrids in probably many different races. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yes, you are correct. It is in that sense multi-species hybrids that I am in that way, training and teaching and learning from.
And many people on our planet right now are interacting with these hybrids and dream states and having maybe even physical contact to a certain extent or quasi-physical in a sense. We're just starting this process. It's a big topic, and I kind of was wondering from your perspective, what parts or aspects of this topic of the hybrid idea, from an idea perspective, can people take and integrate in their lives right now?
To be the inner child, to be who you were when you were born. Because that's what the hybrid energy is reflecting back to you. The idea of the childhood innocence, the primordial nature that is built into all of you, that is very alive and very active and very expressive when you are young. The idea is the hybrid children help to reorient your attention to be more fixated upon that level of your being, which is omnipresent and is all pervading. The idea is that inner child energy, that spark of creation that you are, is the fire that you use to light the metaphorical torch of all of your life processes. So understand, so basically, you in that way are your own fountains of youth.
And so basically, adopting that hybrid child or childlike lens in all aspects of your waking life.
Precisely, yes. To think in that sense as the evolved child. And when we say the evolved child, we are referring to the childlike nature of who you actually are, merging with the guidance of the higher self, allowing for the inner child and inner adult to walk hand in hand, side by side.
And I'm assuming that's probably going to vary from individual to individual and how they go about doing that. But are there any action points that you might be able to suggest for us in let's say a day-to-day activity, going to work or doing the dishes? I don't know. Is there? How would I guess we individually would use our imagination to think, how would a child do the dishes? How would a child go to work? But
that is one way
along those lines.
That is a way you can approach it. That is all well and good, is valid in that sense. There are many ways that one can begin to allow for the energetics of the inner child, of the innermost self, to shine forth into whatever it is you find yourself experiencing or engaging with. The idea is to allow for yourself to ask the question, how could this be more exciting? How could this be more fun? How could this be more passionate? And as you ask those questions and you bask in those states of being, of passion, of joy, of excitement, as you marinate in those energies and you ask that question, you will find your physical mind will deliver to you certain versions of the actions you're considering taking. Certain pathways, certain choices, certain ways of navigating that are available to you. Some of those options your physical mind presents to you will be more reflective of your passion and joy than the others. But it is the one that's most reflective of your passion and joy that is in full alignment with that inner child. And as you align with that energy of passion, you are automatically allowing for your inner child to continuously play, because that's what you're in, a grand play. You're simply learning to play along with the cues of the director. We remind you, the director is also yourself.
Wonderful. Yeah, and so and by doing what you just said, I'm assuming is just going to automatically bring us closer to more interactions with these physical or dreamlike interactions with these children.
Precisely, yes. The idea is, you could say it's a matter of a continuous upward momentum that is generated through moment-to-moment choice and decision and implementation of positive strategic belief into the reality framework. As this becomes consistent and builds in a momentous way over time, it allows for the thinning of the veil, as you call it, to accelerate in your own personal reality, as you are stabilizing and building upon a higher frequency as your new baseline. Therefore, it is in that sense upgrading your inner and outer senses to be able to more greatly and easily perceive the realities of the hybrids, as well as many other extra-dimensional beings interfacing with your civilization currently.
And one aspect of the contact experience that I've noticed recently that I wasn't so much aware of until I started addressing it, is that contact in this in a contact with other dimensional beings, extra dimensional beings, can be physically taxing on our nervous system. And I know of other people who've had contact experiences, and myself personally, I'm just now opening up to memories slightly of having nervous system shutdowns at peak contact experiences, unconscious in a sense, nervous system breakdowns. So I guess so two aspects to this question. What can we do to not shut down, not shut our nervous system? And then also, what can we do emotionally to work through some of the fear, even though in my case, a lot of the fear is unconscious fear in a sense. I'm really excited about contact, as many of us are, but there's a big aspect of it, I think, that we still are fearful. Why would our nervous system shut down if we weren't fearful of it? So what are some points we can do to
Are you familiar with the concept of overstimulation?
Yes.
Yes, it's a matter of that. It's not that anything damaging is happening, but in many ways, it's such a high frequency environment that if your nervous system is not used to raising its own electric frequency that high, it can in many senses short circuit it temporarily. However, this oftentimes is factored in and is used strategically because it instantly puts you into a mode of decompression and relaxation and rest. So that also can be a utility depending on how the overstimulation is used. But generally speaking, it's not a pathway many beings that are contacting you prefer to choose. but sometimes that is what is required. Generally speaking, to prevent the idea or to decrease the probability or possibility of an overstimulation, the idea is to ensure your consciousness is a similar match to the beings you are wishing to engage with. Making sure your own frequency is akin to theirs on a daily continuous basis will train your nervous system to be able to handle those high frequencies. Should you maintain that state of being before you go to sleep and right after you wake up, you will actually multiply and crystallize that high frequency in your dream world. So your physical reality framework will then be more reflective of that higher frequency. So you'll begin to identify with it on a more fundamental level and experience yourself from that place. Thus then, when you interact with these beings, these extra dimensionals or extraterrestrials, however you wish to label them, it allows for your nervous system to be adapted to the energies they are sharing with you and they are working with you regarding. These are ways you can begin to make your own body more synergistic with their energies. There are certain health protocols that can also be engaged in that can support the idea of the nervous system and the idea of the integrity of the nervous system. In terms of substances of your world that are beneficial for this, the idea of what is known as the lion's mane mushroom is very powerful for the upgrading and strengthening of the nervous system, as are the idea of ionic trace minerals found through freshly squeezed juices or in supplemental form. Both are acceptable, and these can, in that sense, upgrade the idea of the nervous system, allowing for contact experiences to be less in the overstimulating direction. Excellent.
Perfect. So just to reiterate or say it in my own words so I just understand a little bit better, definitely on the lion's mane and the minerals, those I've already been guided to get on those and been doing that. But for the energy, I guess, for just being more, exposing myself to more of the energy in the sense of, would that be like books or tuning into channeling sessions like yourself?
This is a way you can do it, but we encourage creating your own ritual, you could say, your own what is called sacred space, where you can really dial in, tune in, and have a moment of experience that is outside of the normal collective consciousness of your local reality. To create space for yourself that to you represents the transcending of space, time, and other physical reality variables. As you go into a timeless psychological state, you are also in a state that is much more wiggly with the idea of space. So other dimensions and beings of other dimensions are more easily able to integrate with you. So what you consider to be the flow state or the trance state, these can be supportive. Anything that will take you outside of your sense of time and local space will be supportive for the contact experiences. Now, we wish to touch upon a question you had mentioned earlier in relationship to the idea of deep psychological issues or wounds that may exist within a being that get triggered when the individual is then interfacing with beings of high frequency. Now, even though it may seem like these wounds or these issues are very deep-seated, therefore making them harder to observe because they're so deep in the ground of your being, recognize that just like a seed, these deep wounds, quote unquote, germinate and spread and grow. And they take up multiple areas within the soil they are planted in. So you may not be able to clearly see the seed at first, but you may begin to notice a weed that is generating within the reality, within the emotions, within your, what seems to be an innate response to something in a negative way. Those represent the plants, the weeds that are growing from the seed that you call the deep wound. So when you pay attention in your reality to the things that show up on maybe a daily basis or a weekly basis that represent certain sensations of discomfort, that maybe feel less preferred, or you may even call them negative, begin to focus there and investigate, well, what's the narrative? What's the belief I must be using that creates such an experience, that creates such an effect? And again, this is a question to ask yourself in one of these sacred spaces. And you'll find that you'll begin, in many ways, to travel down the rabbit hole of the belief network to the seed. So if you focus on what's relevant for you today and each day, you will expose whatever deep wounds are there in all perfect timing. Does that make sense for you?
Beautiful. Yeah, that's right in alignment with what I'm dealing with right now. So perfect synchronicities. Thank you.
How exciting. Thank you for being the perfect synchronicity that you are.
And just to follow up just on that, just to go with that a little bit deeper. So once we find the root, and I know we're on a limited time here, so I don't want to go too deep in this, and this may be something we can pick up in the future, but just to go a little bit, unpack that a little bit more. Once we find that issue, or I'm sorry, once we find the seed, we can sort of weed out the weeds in a sense and find the seed. How do we just send it love? What action points can we take to then diffuse the triggering energy that's creating the resistance in our day-to-day life?
Yeah. Once you have observed the idea of the seed, which we deem a core belief, once you have observed that within your innermost self, you've actually neutralized its energy. Now, once it is neutralized, which again is automatic upon its discovery, it can then be remolded, resculpted in whatever image, whatever likeness you prefer. It is clay because it's just your own projection. It's just your own creation. Therefore, you can create it and sculpt it and mold it however you prefer. You can create a new belief that is in alignment with your passion, or you could create one that is not. It's truly up to you. But once it's been neutralized, the idea is, which you have already said, feeding it good energy, feeding it the energy of your heart center, your love, your joy, your passion, feeding it this, and then choosing to sculpt a new narrative, a new story, because it's your narrative and your story, i.e. your belief systems, that generate your experience of the physical reality. So the idea is, once you have created a neutrality in that belief structure at the seed level, then tell a new story with that feeling state behind it. Once you've told the story, allow for yourself to go into the state of reception and love and openness, and say to yourself, imagination, I'd like for you to deliver me an action I can take that represents this new belief structure, that represents this new energy within me. Your physical mind will then deliver you actions that are varying in their alignment with the idea of that new energy. Our recommendation would be select the option your mind presents to you that's most in alignment with that level of yourself, with your truth, with your heart. Select that option with no expectation of what it will produce, what it will bring to you, knowing that simply through choosing it, you are choosing to be yourself, and that is all life ever asks of you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for your questions and your existence.
Michelle, do we want to jump into any questions from the audience?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Riok. And just to elaborate on, as Riok was sharing with us, to embrace those negative seeds, those thoughts. One tool that I use is the Ho'oponopono, which is looking at the thought itself and saying, thank you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, and I love you. And when you really take that in, you can literally instantly shift it. And I also do that with the state of being sessions that I do as well, which Tyler, Riok, and myself, we have something called a state of being Riok Tyler session that you're welcome to do if you want to experience quantum galactic shifts. So with that being said, there's a person here, Kevin Vargas, who says, hi, Riok, I've been feeling conflicted lately with my career. Which way should I go with it? I'd like to hear from my guides on their opinion.
All right. Now, we are going to explain some concepts to you to begin. First and foremost, recognize if your career is not in full alignment with your passion, it's a compromise. That does not make it negative. That does not make it invalid, but if your career is not in alignment with your truth, with your passion fully, you are compromising in some way. Now, that feeling you feel based on the idea of compromising is something that is malleable. It's something that can change. For if you label your current career as a stepping stone to move you further into your passion and to provide to you an opportunity to practice acting on your passion, then the compromise nature of it won't feel so dense. It won't feel so conflicting or so negative. But if you define that compromise as something that's holding you back, as something that's draining you, etc., then you'll only experience it in that way. So if you wish, you can begin to redefine your current career, your current occupation as a stepping stone and as an opportunity for you to observe what you do and don't prefer about occupations, allowing for you to create in that way a comprehensive list of what you prefer in your dream occupation and what you do not. So you can get even more clear, even more refined about the reality experience you say you wish to create. And we remind you, the sky truly is the limit. The only limitation in relationship to career that you could ever experience is whatever limitation is subconsciously selected. So as soon as you allow for yourself to create positive definitions about your workplace, being a stepping stone or being a teacher or being a reflector of what you need to know to more effectively create the reality you prefer, then you will experience that work environment lightening up. It won't feel like a punishment. It will actually feel like more of a messenger, more of a communicator, thus allowing for you to work with it like a teammate in harmony.
Thank you, Riok. So another questioner asks, Anne, she says, my ex-boyfriend had a stroke on Saturday and I found him. From your broader perspective, can you expand on this event? He's doing relatively well now, just needs rehab for his left hand.
Yes, we are detecting that it was a moment for him where it was in that sense an event that had multidimensional effects and entanglements. Let's just say during the stroke, there were alterations being made to his system, as well as experiences of education that he was having on multiple levels, all coinciding into one moment within your physical reality framework. It is also part of the reason why he is doing so well. The idea is, even though that integrative process is appearing as a, you could say, medical issue or medical problem, the idea is there's much more to it than meets the eye. And it in many ways represents the idea of opening up one's veil to be able to perceive more of the multidimensional support that they are connected to, similar to how you would consider to be a near-death experience or a life review process. This situation we are detecting is very similar. So he could, in that sense, walk away with the idea of personality upgrades and perspective upgrades within his own journey. Now, we can only say so much because, of course, he is not the one asking us directly. You are in that way asking us. But we understand the information will be beneficial for him, so we are happy to share it in this way.
Thank you, Riok. Do you have time for one more question, or do you want to?
Yes, we will take one more question. That is quite all right.
Okay, so Lisa says, if it is suiting this time with Reuben as our guest, Riok has earlier told us about how to find a vortex in nature and to use that to connect on. Can we also create our own vortex in nature, or will we automatically be attracted to an existing vortex in the nature, so it really doesn't matter?
It's both. It's both. You will generate a vortex wherever you are if you go into the proper frequency state, and oftentimes you'll find it will naturally gravitate you towards vortices that are present within the local reality. Now, you may find in your home, for example, maybe there's not a natural vortex present in a very strong way. Maybe it's over there in your neighbor's yard or across the street. But the idea is you can create a vortex that is permanent in nature within your own space through the idea of a proper permission slip, a proper ritual that to you represents condensing energies and merging opposites. That is how you open portals. The idea is when you unify opposites together, you are creating a portal space. So one technique we oftentimes offer to individuals is the idea of bringing up the earth energy into your being and bringing down the cosmic energy into your being, into your center, allowing for you to operate as a spiritual axis, so to say. The idea of being the spinal linkage, the spinal ladder from earth to heaven. This type of energetic manipulation within one's being, in whatever way you find that to be inspiring for you and applicable for you, can allow for portals to be opened in a very easy way. And through your state of being, while you are engaging in these activities, that will then flavor and code the nature of the portal. So you can open portals with very specific intentions, very specific energies. So you can begin to then interface with whatever realities that portal is then linked to. Again, your narrative about the portal, your energy about the portal determines what the portal is then most connected to.
Thank you, Riok. Absolutely. Like in our meditations that you guided us through, right? In the first contactee part 1.
Precisely. And this is why so many of you were able to perceive the idea of a group consciousness, because you all together were essentially opening up a portal linking you to the idea of the soul family level of the group interaction. That is one of the reasons why the idea of group cohesion was so abundant and still is so strong.
We are actually portals ourselves, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Indeed.
And
All
that
right.
is how you allow in many of the multidimensional beings that are soul contracted to you in this lifetime to be active players in your reality.
Thank you, Riok. Is there anything you want to share in closing that excites you about our coming together, Reuben and I, and what we're all up to?
We are very elated regarding this interaction. For us, it represents the idea of a merging of multiple timelines. The idea is you are all essentially becoming very clear about the types of reality experiences you say you prefer, you say you wish to have. And in many ways, you are allowing for certain factors within the reality, certain circumstances, certain trajectories to be released. And many of you are now acting in a way that represents alignment with timelines that are a match for your preference. And we see this as a multi-level timeline unification interaction that is allowing for very beneficial trajectories to be woven into your collective narrative and your local and individual narratives as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for your splendid gift of existence.
Thank you, Riok. Beautiful. Well said.
Thank you as well. Our unconditional love to all of you, and our many thanks for your gift. All right.
That was awesome, Tyler.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you
Tyler,
all.
that was so great. Thank you.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you all for enjoying and for being a part of it.
Good times. Yeah, just to follow up on the portal, I do the Wim Hof method techniques with breathing, and I have different spots I go out to in nature in my ritual in doing that, and it's been fun to see the spots that I've picked. I've sort of naturally gravitated toward, but I've noticed that those spots are getting stronger and stronger as portals. And the more I do it, so you're literally creating, I don't know if there was already, maybe it was naturally gravitated to them for a certain reason, but I've been fueling the portals with the breath work and the intention, and magic has been happening in some of those spots.
Oh yeah. Amen to that. I know I see so many similar things. I'm a big fan of the portal lifestyle too. Right? Yo, man, and more than just the video game, right? The portal lifestyle.
Totally. Yes, the video game is cool too.
For sure. And yeah, man, it's a blast. Like going out to the sites is really fun. And then just noticing the reality shifts. Like I find that on days where I'm like really keeping that going, like the daily meditations in these spots, that's when I feel like a lot of stuff will start to happen. Like I'll make a lot of personal movements forward in many directions. and just so much. Like, and when I look at the amount of knowledge that seems to just be constantly downloaded, especially in proximity to these like portal interactions, it's like so strikingly different to when I was like not doing that kind of portal nature time. Like, it feels like it's almost like I'm like a USB drive getting plugged into like a supercomputer.
Yeah. Great analogy. Totally. I resonate with that for sure. Same thing.
And it was really exciting in First Contactee Training Part 1, where you really, when you channeled through Riok, and he taught us how to feel into that and to just scan the area and then be brought into that, was just so cool. That was just amazing.
I love the rainbow body meditation too that Riok taught us in the Part 1 as well. First Contactee Training Part 1.
That's a very awakening meditation. I still remember when I was doing it. Like, I taught the class, right, as Riok channeling, and then that night I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this meditation myself. And dude, I was having like straight up like closed-eyed visuals of like I would meditate on an aura layer with the color, and like I'd see a hand like reach through, and I'd be like, what the? I'm like, where's that hand coming from? I'm like, who's helping me? You know? So,
Nice.
yeah, it's very powerful. And that was great because that was our first channel class, and it was pretty remarkable, I think, for our first adventure around this material.
Well, what's really exciting for me is that Reuben just joined our First Contactee Training Part 1 and 2, and he's going to Hawaii, which is a power point on the planet. It's a chakra for the Earth to Earth, and he said he's going to dive into the First Contactee 1 there in those energies. So I'm going to want to have him back on Nourish Your Soul so I can hear his experiences, because I know there's going to be some interdimensional activities that are definitely going to happen in your experience, Reuben. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah, well, we're doing, I'm doing with Gita a contact retreat. We sort of have our protocols and schedule and everything already in place. And I probably won't have time to dive into the course until after that, because I've scheduled some me time after the retreat. I'll be in Hawaii for another week and a half of just soaking up the energies and then doing my own. We have to, as teachers and sharers of this information, we have to do our own work to keep the circuit going, to keep the portal open, so to say. So definitely, when it came across Facebook and I saw the course, I'm like, do I really need to do another contact course? Absolutely. I was like, and plus it was, I've been watching Tyler and you guys and Michelle, been watching you guys sort of grow since our first conversation many months ago, Tyler, to invite you onto the show and watching this, and I've sort of been a distance. I'm like, we're getting closer to that time. I think this summer is when I really wanted to reach out and do the interview, and we haven't set the time up. But I thought I'd also want to get more familiar with Riok and that energy, and it's sort of my prep work too before the interview. I figured it would be a good little course to take on.
Well, we're looking forward to you joining us in Sedona. We're planning a retreat with Riok in Sedona, and so that you said that would be a short drive for you. So I think that would be a good place for us to have a powerful vortex, to have a nice little powwow recording.
Oh yeah,
totally.
The Bell Rock weekend adventure. That sounds good. That sounds really
for
good.
sure.
Yeah.
And while we're on this subject, I'd like to just quickly take this moment to announce that currently we are getting ready to launch in April, the first week in April. Michelle, is that right? Contactee Training Part 3, which is super exciting because, as Tyler and Riok have already let us know, it's going to include a lot of hybrid interaction, and it's going to help us all, guide us into really digging into our own inner child, as was said earlier, and to help us jump on that dimension almost, right, Tyler? That dimension where we can meet both realities more easily. And that is like super exciting. So it's ready. Look for, I guess, Michelle, I'm going to put the comment with the information somewhere if this is going to be on YouTube, somewhere on this page and in the comments here on Facebook, and just look for them because it's going to be so exciting. And if this already resonates with you, and if you're already actually watching this, it's not an accident, folks. It's not an accident. We're all in this together. So follow your highest excitement, click the link, and just get on board this train because it is so much fun.
Yes, we are taking enrollments for the First Contactee Part 3 right now. So if that is something that speaks to you, then, and you haven't already taken the Part 1 or the Part 2, then this is a good time to take advantage of going through courses of Part 1 and Part 2 so that you can be ready for Part 3 once we do pick that up live, which will be happening in April. The dates for that are to be announced soon. And we also have March's event coming up as well, which will be our monthly March stream as Riok reads into the energies for us, and we'll have that being on the nourishyoursoul.tv site that you can go to check out for more information. We love all of you. Thank you for coming, and if you didn't get your question acknowledged or answered today, we encourage you to go ahead and put it in the comments because Jahira is actually putting all of our questions together so that we can ask Riok as time permits and allows us to do that. So keep following your highest excitement. I know we definitely are. And let's continue to grow our tribe and to remember to know that you're loved, you're lovable. Your existence itself alone is making an impact in the world of who you're being. And it is your love, it is your heart that is the infinite intelligence of the universe that taps you in and turns you on to all of life. And the mysteries will open up to you as you allow yourself to be receptive to receive that. And one permission slip I will leave you with is that I like to use is I choose to allow my thoughts to be informed with love. So whenever a thought arises, you don't have to identify with it. You don't have to make it mean anything. They're just passing clouds. These thoughts are passing clouds, and you can just choose in that moment, I choose to allow love to inform my thoughts. And just breathe into that. So I'd like to also let Reuben, if he has any announcements he wants to make before we close off, to make those, and then we will say our goodbyes.
Yeah, just one more time, I'll kind of do my plug for the show, which is going to be airing on Gaia on the Gaia Network in March 2nd. And if you're not a Gaia subscriber and want to see it another way, I'll be simultaneously releasing it on my Vimeo channel. My website, it's under construction right now. It's interviewwithed.org, one word. Also, ETAWAKE. So ETAWAKE.org is for our events coming up. Stay tuned, lots more coming.
Thank you so much. And then also, Reuben and I, we just sneak little announcement. We were talking about collaboration on a channel panel. So with that being said, I'm not going to spill the beans any more than that. So that's just super, super, super exciting.
Oh,
so,
what a great path. Just throwing that out there. That's a good, very relevant direction.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thank you all so much for co-creating this event. This was so lovely. Reuben, great to see you again, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Tyler. And look forward to more interactions.